Welcome to day 14, the final day of the second week of ZenMadman's Nutty Pot Limit Omaha journey. It's not a challenge, as there's not any real concrete, this is exactly what I'm trying to achieve. It's more of a journey where I'm starting in a given place, and I will end up somewhere else, but I don't know where that'll be. It'll presumably, hopefully, be somewhere with a higher level of Pot Limit Omaha understanding and skill, ability, and hopefully more money. But, you know, there is variance, so we'll see how all that turns out. I'm going to call. I have two pairs, and I have a suit. I mean, nines and deuces are not fantastic, and I don't know whether I would usually call this against a cutoff. It might be a bit of a stretch, but they made the minimum raise. So for the minimum raise, I think I can see a flop with this hand. Two things about the min raise is I get a great immediate price to call, and it suggests that they might have a somewhat weaker range than they would if they were raising, I don't know, say the maximum. So, ace 2-3 with a suited 10. I believe I would open this hand here, but I'm not super duper confident, just because the deuce and the tray are very poor cards. In fact, I take it back. I think I probably fold this hand, but I'm going to mark it. And you can all let me know how you feel about the tons of pre-flop hands that we've been reviewing. I feel like since my stream at the moment is oriented more towards less accomplished Pot Limit Omaha players, that reviewing pre-flop is super important. Now, these two players seem to be getting into it on this board. This seems like a hand that we want to know what's going on. Mostly boats should be betting this size, I would think. They can have some straights, and they did. What did they get called by? So they had trips and a straight. So again, that gets back to the concept of if you're going to make a thin value bet with a hand that's not like the top hands category, right? You're going to bet a straight on a paired board, or a straight on a flush board, or a flush on a paired board. Having some blocker to that bigger hand, there it was much less likely they'd run into a boat because they had one card of the trips, so it's a lot harder for someone to make a full house. What did they get called by? They got called by ace, king, jack, 8. They got called by ace, jack, so top pair, top kicker. So I'm just going to say pretty sticky. That's the type of note I don't generally like to take. That's judgmental, right? And the problem isn't that it's judgmental in that, you know, it's gonna like hurt their feelings. It doesn't matter. They're not watching the stream. I mean, I would hope. And if they are, whatever. The problem with a like judgmental note is that it doesn't give us concrete information. It's my opinion from seeing something earlier in the session. And so it's harder to kind of reevaluate that and put it in the context of further information. But I took the note anyway, so you know what? We'll change the note. We'll change the note. Good habits. We're all about developing good habits here. Check call, river, 0.5 PSB on river with ace, king, jack, 8 on jack, 7-7-6-5. That wasn't the run out. The run out was more like, that's the gist of it, right? We'll call it like this, something like this. Okay. So now we know if we want to go back and look at the note, it's a note about something that actually happened as opposed to a note about an opinion that I had about a thing that happened. And so the note is a fact. It's a note about a fact as opposed to a note about a perception. So I might reinterpret that fact given future information. But yeah, in terms of, you know, taking action, I think I can value bet a little thinner against that player. And then this player, V-bets 0.5 PSB on river with, I think the 8's a pretty bad card. This min raise, though, makes me feel like maybe I can do something with this. I'm going to fold anyway. If it were a 9 or like even a 5 or a 4, I think I 3-bet this. Again, let's throw this in the queue for pre-flop review. And what was I? I was making a note down here with 987 X on Jack 7675. Okay. So we know we've seen this person make a thin value bet, and we've seen this other person make a very light river call. So these are things that we want to be aware of as we're playing. All right. New player steps into the big blind, gets raised, decides to take a flop. So far, all signs point to good, but you know, there's plenty of hands they can have that would be worth calling in this spot. The original pre-flop raiser bets out half pot. They're going to have the ace-ace combos that other players generally aren't going to have in this scenario, having not raised or re-raised. But they, in terms of spades, I'd say it's hard to say, right? I mean, they might be fairly evenly distributed amongst people in this scenario. You know, the nuts don't change on this card, so if you were betting the flop, you know, fair bet to bet the turn. And I would have said, you know, mostly jamming river, but now the board pairs. So anyone who was drawing and drawing to a boat likely made a boat unless they had like ace-4, ace-10-4 or something. All right, so the one player had the nut blocker, and top and bottom pair, they did have ace-4, and the other player had the second nut flush. So interesting that they bet the second nut flush twice and then check back river. I mean, the river was, yeah, checking back river isn't that interesting, actually. And this hand might be playable in this spot. I'm not sure. I think having the gaps between the queen and the 10 and the 10 and the 8 makes it a little worse. Being suited to the queen is nice. 10s are pretty decent. This player, we don't really have a lot of stats on them because, again, we were filtered for 4 players, right? So now everything's off. I need to, let's make another reminder. Change HUD. I just deleted the reminder and then didn't do the thing last night because I wanted to shut my computer down. Give it a nap. Let it relax a little bit. I think it's been overtaxed. Okay, change HUD. Filter 4 to 6 players. I could actually probably do that right now, but that would be fairly boring to watch, so I won't. I'll do that after the session. This is double suited trash, right? It like looks a lot better than it is. It is suited to the king and the jack, so if I were on the button, it's the type of trash I would be opening. But from the low jack, it's not even close. Okay. I'm going to make another note. Let's see. Update. Twitch. Profile. And, you know, tell people, as always, let me know, you know, if there's any hands that you want me to review after the session. On Twitch, you could just type in the 4 hole cards. Like this hand, you just say, you know, 9, 10, 10, queen. And the 10s, I use T's. That's pretty much the standard online nomenclature. 9 TTQ, right? But, you know, you can say 9, 10, 10, queen and write it out. And that's fine. I'll know what you're talking about. And that's on Twitch. On YouTube, it's better if you include the timestamp of when the hand was played. It's much more easier for me to go back and look at the hand then. I'm probably not going to go filter for the day and go find the whole cards and then, but I mean, maybe I will. I probably will. But like, just put the timestamp if you're on YouTube. It'll be much more helpful. Okay, queen, 10, 10, 9 with a suited queen. And this is like that hand I had earlier, except now it's a little bit more connected. And I'm going to check And I'm going to not have that much of the flop. I have a gut shot and I have bottom pair. So this might be a decent sort of bluffing hand. If it checks around, I might take a stab on the turn. We have seen this button be fairly sticky in my subjective opinion. So now I have 2 pair and I'm double blocking the straight. So what's my equity like here? If they have a ace or a king and something, I don't think I'm in great shape. I think I'm going to check again, and then I will value bet the river if it's a brick. And $1, I believe I will call $1. I still have a straight draw, right? If a jack comes, I have the nuts. And since I have 2 tens, it's going to be a little bit easier to get some value than if I had no tens. And now my hand's quite junky. I have aces and queens with a 10, and they had a king. So I was ahead. And they had a flush draw to go with a gut shot and a pair of kings. I think if I bet, they probably would have called. Mostly, if I bet, I could have gotten maybe some folds from ace x or king x or some value. Those would have been the hands I was kind of trying to do something against. I think in this 5-way limped pot, with the nut flush possibility and some level of connectivity, I am going to see the flop. Not a wonderful hand, but, you know, I'd say adequate for what we need right now. I flop middle pair, backdoor nut flush draw. I'd love a free card. If we catch like a free 3 of diamonds, I'll be stoked. I mean, I won't be like putting a ton of money in, but I think I'll bet out. As if it checks around, it will suggest nobody is that likely to have, you know, queens up or better. And so 9s and trays will very likely be good. It's not a 3 of diamonds, but it's a 3. And I think there's a very good chance that my hand is good right now. I am out of position and against a bunch of passive players, but nobody was really interested in the flop. I'm going to go ahead and bet the turn. I'm going to bet a bit on the larger side, mostly just to kind of discourage calls from, if somebody has like a 4 and 3 overs to a 9, well, they'd have a gut shot as well. You know, fold out some gut shots, fold out some, you know, queen and 3 kickers actually would be something I'm more concerned of. Okay, I get raised. And I really have no idea what this person's pretending they have or what they do have, but it's pretty easy for it to be better than 9s and 3s. So, you know, that'll be the downside of my bet. But I thought it was pretty safe there to expect that it wasn't that likely that anybody had all that much. Ace 10, 4, 5. I will open raise this on the button. If it folds to me, I'm going to isolate. If there's another limper, I think I'm going to fold because of the combination of the tri-suit and the fact that, I mean, my hand isn't that good. But I think I will isolate with this against just the one limper, who seems fairly loose. And against a raise, I'm definitely going to fold. So this one I'm going to mark just in terms of, I was trying to figure out, okay, I'm confident I'm going to raise the button with it. I think I raise the cutoff. And if there's 2 limpers, the suggestion is to basically play a hijack range and to raise that always. Not really ever over limping. I think in the small blind, having some over limps makes sense. Although it's gonna result in a lot of, you know, kind of unpleasant post flop scenarios where out of position in a multi-way pot. Right, so on this board, anybody can have some flush draws. Nobody has the nut flush draw because we folded it, but we'll see what ends up happening here. Yeah, so the turn, you know, changes the nuts in that it went from a set of jacks, which it seemed pretty likely nobody had, to a set of queens, which, I mean, I don't think anybody's that likely to have. This player who raises, they raised the last hand that I played, right? Was the very last hand, yeah. And, you know, this is a small bet, though. Here they're raising a $1 into $13, which is very different than when they raised me. So, you know, we would have called that bet with a gut shot plus the nut flush draw, even blocking ourselves. It was a set of jacks, so they did actually flop a set of jacks, and then they slow played it, and then they lost to a runner straight draw. And that kind of is the sort of classic, like, yeah, in PLO, maybe you don't want to check raise as much against the raiser, because the raiser isn't going to bet as much as they might in Hold'em, I'm not saying that they necessarily played it incorrectly. I don't know. And if that player in position was going to bet a lot, then they probably should be check raising them. And they can probably basically get close to getting it in on the flop anyway. But instead, they waited till their opponent had a pretty good draw. Let's see. No, I say pretty good draw. They had an open-ended straight draw, only one of those outs being to the nuts, and a pair. So their opponent had a fairly weak draw by Pot Limit Omaha standards and called anyway. So it worked out for them, but it was a card that brought the flush anyway. So they were unable to get any value. If it had been a straight card. Okay, so this is a very good hand. Pre-flop kings with a suited ace 10. I believe this is going to be a 3-bet, largely because I'm holding the ace and am thus much less likely to get 4-bet. If I do get 4-bet, what am I supposed to do with kings with an ace 10 suited? Is it a hand that I just get it in? There's these very short stacks at play as well. This is not the sort of flop I was really aiming for. Backdoor nut flush draw, gut shot, and an overpair. 3-1 SPR, but this just smashes raise calling ranges and like cold call of 3-bet range. So I'm gonna check. This person behind me bets, goes all in, and then the other player folds. I think I will call this off because the combination of my overpair, which might be good, my gut shot, which would definitely be good, and my backdoor flush draw, which would be good if it doesn't pair the board for sure. I think all makes sense, especially because then we just get to see the whole run out, right? Even if they have a hand like Jack 9, if they have anything, even if they have a set, probably have close to 25% equity, right? Let's see, 4 or 5 for that. 10, 20. Yeah, so I think this is, I easily, even if they turned up pocket jacks. And so, as you can see, I'm actually ahead, right? They had queens with a jack and a king. And I kind of like how I played that hand. I don't know if it's correct, but I didn't really want to bet and then get check raised by the person on my right. Of course, if they had called, I think I was going to fold. So maybe that's bad. But that's one where we can look at equities against different holdings that my opponent can have. They had a pretty nice hand pre-flop, right? I don't know what they're supposed to do against a 3-bet, against a cold 3-bet. I feel like maybe they're just supposed to fold, which would feel gross, but I mean, not that gross, right? I mean, it's like king, queen, queen, jack. It's very nice, but when it goes raise, re-raise ahead of you, like, it's not as nice. I don't know. I had a hand yesterday, last night, off stream, where I had 10, 8, 7, 6 on the button with a single suit, and it turned out that I had, I raised, there was 3-bet, 4-bet, 5-bet, I ended up folding, but it ends up, it would have been 3-handed. I would have had 40-something% equity with 10 high against ace, ace, and king, king. So I don't know if I should have gotten my stack in with that hand, but it felt like such a not that good hand. That's the type of hand I feel like I should post somewhere where experts play, and I'll try that out. I'm gonna say post hands, right? Post hands on forums. That's kind of how I got good at poker for the second time, right? The first time I basically just read all the poker books, and most other people weren't reading the poker books, so it gave a very solid advantage in the games I was playing in. And then years later, coming back to the games were tougher. They weren't that tough compared to now, but they were a lot tougher than they had been in like the late 90s, the Rounders days. And as a result, I had to find other ways of getting better. And, getting Poker Tracker and being able to track and review my hands was a big part of that. But also a big part of that was just, going on internet forums and adding, typing, putting my hand in, right? And saying like, okay, how would you play this? And just as important as seeing how other people would play what I had, I would comment on what other people had and go through the process of, analyzing hands. Basically how I do at the end of the session, except with some feedback, right? Hearing other voices of other people who are trying to play well as well. Doesn't mean anybody had all the answers. In fact, nobody had all the answers. Still, nobody has all the answers, but we have a lot better answers than we had before. But just that conversation, and I think the kind of social aspect to it made it a little easier to just do it like every day. And at some point, I think I ended up wasting time on forums, just commenting on too much stuff. This is pretty nice. I mean, I've got a double gapper at the top, but I've got 3 connected cards at the bottom, double suited the best way for this combo. I will check as I've flopped basically just a gutter and middle pair, and my suits don't match the board suits at all. This is a check fold. But yeah, kind of, you don't want to, one of the dangers is developing that kind of like hive mind where, there's another word for it, but okay, Jack 9, bottom set. So bottom set, they made a straight, right? But like they fought bottom set. That was their hand. But I think that shows kind of, if they had been up against a bigger set, they weren't. They were up against a flush draw. But if they were up against a bigger set, having that backdoor straight and backdoor flush equity, they would have drawn out on them, right? So those kind of escape hatches are very important. It can give you significant equity in a spot where you'd otherwise be just totally dominated. Drawing to 1 out. Instead of drawing to 1 out, you're drawing to, you probably have like 20-ish% equity or something. I think this is pretty bad because the 2 and the 3 and the 7 isn't very good with the 2 and the 3 either. So I'm going to raise a lot of, suited aces on the button. And I think this is one of the few that's just doesn't make the cut. But yeah, you don't want to like post hands on forum and then just take everything people say as gospel, or develop a sense of like, oh, whatever the majority thinks is definitely going to be clear. Like that's not really how we find truth, right? I mean, maybe it's how you find truth, but I don't think it's very effective. But listening to the logic and trying to follow it and, using your own logic. And then sometimes maybe finding a smaller group of people who are more right at the level where you are, a few people a little bit ahead, a few people a little behind maybe, and working together, I think is, study groups. I've got a chapter on that. Where's my book? It's in the other room. I might make a video series of just reading my poker book, Way of the Poker Warrior, which was 11 years ago that I wrote it, and some of it's dated in various ways, but let me know if there's any interest in that. I think it would be, basically make an audiobook out of it. I'm gonna write some new stuff in the not too distant future, but in the short run, I'm just trying to keep it simple, kind of low pressure, do the same basic work every day, and kind of see what the results are from that. I think so far so good. I'm running better this month than I was last month, but also I just feel much more confident pre-flop. Like the ace-7-3 deuce, I think in the past I probably would have had a feeling like I would have felt like, oh, is this... I wouldn't have had ways of thinking about whether I should play the hand, right? Maybe I would have come to the right conclusion. Maybe this time I came to the wrong conclusion. I'm not sure yet. We'll find out after this session. But I had a coherent thought process, right? Which is like, I have learned that having a deuce and then also having a 3, and now I have another deuce and a deuce and a 3 and a 10 isn't very good. And having a 7 to go with the 3 and a 2 also isn't very good. And like that might seem intuitive, but like we're on the button, so we get to play hands that aren't very good. But, and we want to play a lot of suited ace X. But I think that's one of the few that's just like, yeah, this is a little bit too far. All right, I need to make another note to myself. I would have had sixes full of deuces, though. So, that's fine. I can beat ace, king, queen, jack now. So ace, jack, queen, 4, I'm going to fold. I think if I'm double suited, I'm definitely playing this. I think regular single suited, I'm gonna play, but this is another one. I think we have a squeeze big blind versus button and small blind. I think that's available in the matrix. Again, the deuce is a very poor card, and right there I got saved by one of the better features of Ignition. And by better features, I mean they have the fold or the fold checkbox like right over what ends up being the call, I think, which is terrible. Like, it shouldn't do that, but at least if you're going to click the thing and then the other thing pops up and you click it, it generally won't register as a click. So otherwise, I think I would have just cold called with this hand, and I probably would have check folded the flop, even though I had top pair second kicker. It's not a particularly strong spot to be in. Actually, do I fold this? I might raise this. I've got threes, yeah, it's a weak pair, but this suited to the king and having another Broadway card. King and another Broadway card is usually pretty good. There's some value there. So let me go back to this other thing. There we are. Okay, I've got my notes. And yeah, I mean, for one tabling, I could have like my notepad on the screen would be one way of going about it. And because I know when I'm like taking notes off screen, I could have a handwritten thing. It's Daniel Naroditsky is always writing stuff down. Oh, let me make a note of that while playing chess in the speed runs and stuff. And I like that, but I think that having a notepad it's a very chess player habit, I think. What with having notepads while playing chess games. Okay, 9, 8, 5, 4, double suited. Okay. So I think this is probably a standard open from the cutoff. I'm not certain. We'll find out. I am double suited in the best variety. Both, I'm suited to the 9, I'm suited to the 8, and both of them, because it's 9-5 and 8-4, I have 2 straight flush draws, which is nice. That has to be marginally better than 9-4 and 8-5, I think, except for 8-5 can make 2 different straight flushes. I don't know. Maybe it's not better. But it at least seems good, right, to have that factor, and being suited to the 9 and 8 is good, for sure. And ace king 5-4 is pretty good. We play a lot of hands with the ace king, and I'll mark the previous hand for pre-flop. And maybe today we're just like reviewing pre-flop. I don't know. This might be a decent 3-betting hand as well. I'm gonna flat. I'm not super confident in it as a 3-bet. I've got backdoor flush draw, backdoor Broadway draw, backdoor small straight draw. Now I have a gutter. If I catch a 6, I have a straight. Not super exciting stuff. They check back. That might indicate that they don't have anything that good, and I could just win it with a bet, but I have so little, and such a little draw to so little, and no blockers to anything meaningful. I think folding is, the way to go. So yesterday I streamed 3-tabling a little later in the day, a little bonus stream, just kind of to try out 3-table streaming. For me, it was fairly comfortable, so I think I will do more of that in the future. I won't necessarily do that instead of the single table streaming. I will do it in addition, I think. What I might do is take this single table streaming down to more of a half hour, 20-minute, 45-minute, somewhere in there, something less than an hour, so that then I do the review on it, and all of that adds up to less than an hour. A little bit of a tighter kind of singular thing where I will try to just totally be focused and gradually be more and more focused on the action. Here, I don't have the ace of suit, but the ace is still a good card. I mean, it's an ace, it's high, it makes big things like pairs of aces. It doesn't connect to anything, unfortunately. Also, if hearts come, I can bluff hearts. And this is a board where, you know, that's potentially something that can happen. I do have a gut shot. Unfortunately, you know, we always want to think like, okay, it's a gut shot. What happens if the 8 comes? Well, Jack 10 also makes a straight. So there's not any turn cards that I can play really confidently. And because of that, I'm going to go ahead and check. If there were, if I had instead like 7, 8, I'd be much more likely to bet there. And here, now that I am blocking the nut flush, I'm going to bet, as I don't think my opponent's that likely to have a boat, as they might have let out the flop, they might have let out the turn, they could have a boat, but, you know, there's only one opponent. Pretty likely they don't, and if they had something like a 5, I would expect that they might call turn and then fold river. Alright, so I flop the open-ended straight draw, pocket 4s, and I have a blocker to the flush, and now if a 6 comes, it's not the nut straight, but I do have that 8 high straight instead of just the 6 high straight. I'm just going to fold here, though. Not a good hand and not a very good situation. Very easy for my opponent to, you know, play tons of suited hands on the button and have a flush there, or like anything, basically. Ace 9, 7, 6. I think this is connected enough to open. Again, the ace has value even though it's not suited or connected to anything. It doesn't have that much value though, so this certainly could be a bit of a mistake. I don't think my opponent has me beat that often, and I have an open-ended straight draw. They can have clubs though. I have a club. I like having a club. It just makes it less likely they have a club draw, and they decide to put in a significant raise, and I immediately regret my life choices. Okay, and I'm not super interested in post-flop there. I mean, I'll talk about post-flop briefly, but mostly I'm just going to check up on the pre-flop decision. And if this game gets down to heads up, or actually, I'll play this one-player heads up for a little while if it were to get heads up. All right, and then again, I've got this gut, you know, this gut shot, but if the 8 comes, then Queen 10 makes a straight, 10 8 makes a straight. So, or 10 7, sorry, I'd be double blocking that one. I have 3 cards to a straight flush. I do turn a set. Lots of straights are possible, so if they bet, I'm going to call. I'm not going to raise, and if they check, ooh, they bet full pot. Unfortunately, I also have a 5 in my hand. That's not great. How am I going to feel about getting money in on the river if a jack or a 9 comes? How much money am I going to get in on the turn of the river if a jack or a 9 comes? I feel like I don't actually have odds to draw to this, although I can have the best hand, for sure. Oh, I'm back. Okay. I think I was going to end up calling there, but I wanted to give it a good think. Unfortunately, I timed out, so that's not... we'll review that one in terms of post-flop. I think I tagged the wrong hand a moment ago. Yeah. The 7-7-6-5 I don't think is a post-flop, pre-flop question. I think that's a very clear open on the button. As, you know, those low-mid pairs with 2 connectors, I think play pretty well. I mean, particularly on the button. I might even be able to open a hand like that in the cutoff. But yeah, I feel like I'm definitely by, you know, looking up 100 hands a day, basically, in the PLO matrix, I'm narrowing down... I'm taking those pre-flop errors and just making them smaller and smaller, and the accuracy isn't anywhere near perfect, but I think it's dramatically better than it was like 2 weeks ago. You know, one thing I could do at some point is I could look through each session and actually evaluate, like, how close was I to the matrix's recommendations, and maybe have some, you know, something can either be correct, incorrect, or vary from the matrix in such a way that is arguably good, right? Like, If there's something that is very barely a raise, but it's this worse rake structure, or there's something about the particular opponent, then we say, okay, maybe that's potentially an improvement, potentially a positive exploit. And maybe those hands we assign like a 0 value, like a undefined. We don't count that as a as incorrect or 50-50. We just exclude it from the sample. Because there's not any way to, we don't really have binary feedback on that. We don't have certainty. Okay, top set against top 2, and top set wins. Surprise, surprise. Top 2 did flop a gut shot, and then had their gut shot basically counterfeited on the turn, so the best they could hope for is a chop. So this is similar to the hand I had earlier, right? Except it's a 4 instead of a 5, which is significantly worse. On top of that, I'm the small blind facing a raise, as opposed to being in position contemplating an open raise of my own. So much worse situation with a very similar but slightly worse hand. And from what I've seen, actually that slightly worse is a bigger effect than one might think. Because it's just going to be harder, I guess, to flop really big, right? And those are the sorts of hands that need to flop pretty big to flop anything, right? If they flop little, they're pretty easy to get away from. They're not something you're going to lose a ton of money with usually, unless you are overly stubborn, like really stubborn. Okay. Limped. Is this limped, or was there a bet on the flop? I feel like it was limped. Pretty boring pot. Okay, turns the flush, checks it down. Makes sense. Jack high flush. Not really going to get value from much in general, and then the board's paired. So they're pretty much just happy to have, to just take it down. Yeah, it was a limped pot, and then it went check call on the flop. What did the better have? Let's see. They had 10-7 ace deuce, and the flop was, oh wow. So just, I guess 10-7's a gut shot. All right, so kind of maybe they thought they flopped the not low, with the ace deuce and 3 low cards on board. I think more likely they're just a fairly opportunistic. They saw the out of position player check. They thought maybe I could just win this with a bet. Okay, let's get back to trying to focus on every hand. I think given the fact that we're one tabling, that should be the priority. Instead of trying to get reads from previous hands, focusing here. Set of aces is the nuts. Feels pretty unlikely given there was no bet on the flop, and I don't think this player raised pre-flop. Flush draws are quite possible. Lots of straight draws available. I think there was no card that could come, or a 6 was the only card that would not bring a straight. Queen, obviously, king 10 makes a straight. Aces up might be a hand that's good. Aces up is a hand that's good. Aces up and up. And they were up against... Okay, single suited to the ace, and then just a queen. I don't know. I think this might be the sort of hand that I can open raise, but that's very, very questionable in a loose high rake game. So I think in a tougher game, somewhat paradoxically, generally a tougher game with lower rake, right? The tougher games usually have lower rake because they're usually at higher stakes, and higher stakes games usually have lower rake relative to the size of the blinds. And that would be a big nothing of a flop. We did have a raise and a call, and a lot of money goes in on the flop. Now they're betting small. This is very peculiar. I don't know what they're doing. Maybe they flop big. Maybe they've got some kind of thing like, okay, they have a big draw, and the other person had trips. Okay, that happened. So they've rebought quickly. That's good to see. Let's see. So on the flop, that person had an open-ended straight draw, a pair, and a backdoor flush draw on the turn, or 2 backdoor flush draws. On the turn, they added one of their flush draws, but the thing they failed to really consider, I mean, there wasn't that much money left in stacks anyway, but their flush draw isn't nearly as good because the board is paired, so a lot of their flush cards could give the other person a boat. As it turns out, the other person also had a flush draw, not a live one. It was to the king, and the one player had to the ace, but it was not... if you have a flush draw and the opponent has trips, you want them to have a smaller flush draw, because then... well, actually, it's irrelevant. But, I mean, then you're not going to hit those cards and give them a full house, right? There's fewer cards that can make your flush and give them a full house. You still have the same number of actual outs that are good in terms of hearts, I believe, right? Because those cards wouldn't have been good. The king and the 6 of hearts wouldn't have been good if the other player had a king and a 6 of, like, say, clubs. But here they would have been good, but they're impossible because they're in the opponent's hand. So, that. Okay. Clear fold. We have a open raise from the hijack and a cold call. Again, the hijack is going to have all the ace-ace combos that are not super important, I'd say, on this board. The king-king combos, either player can have. Cold callers will have, or can, I think should have a fair number of king-king combos. That's something I kind of learned yesterday. Whereas, and I mean, I'd always known that, but I didn't know that they should. I knew that they do. You know, queen-jack, rundown type stuff is going to hit this board pretty solidly. So out of position should probably have something substantial to put the check raise in or even call. They certainly can have the nuts, and they can check raise that. If they are check raising the nuts, I'd imagine that they want to have something like a flush draw with it, a little bit more kind of robust equity if they want to get that much money in the pot, and if they want to risk a free card. Instead they check raised and then checked, and I don't know what they're doing. That's maybe they had some kind of a draw that then on the turn they're just not getting the price, and they thought, I'll check raise and try and get them to fold some equity. And then when the player didn't fold, they thought, I guess I'm kind of hosed. I guess, I don't know. All right, raise to $4 from the hijack. They can make it that 50 extra cents because the cutoff had posted 50 cents because they had missed the small blinds because they went bust and didn't rebuy quickly enough. Very scary board for a hand of hand like pocket aces, unless they have, you know, something nice to go with it, like clubs or, you know, king queen or queen 9. Although not really that scary, because you can probably just fold your aces if you don't have anything else. Well, you can definitely just fold your aces if you don't have anything else. Instead, we get a 3/4 pot bet from the pre-flop raiser, 2 calls, and then a pot, a jam basically. So I think we're going to see a 3-way all-in. I think this player who called first, okay, I was wrong. We're seeing a 4-way all-in. That makes sense. What are we looking at? A lot of flush draws. Does anybody... okay, the set made a boat, and... okay, wow. Everybody won something except for the person with the ace high flush draw on the flop. Let's see. All right, kings won part of the pot. All right, we can move on. Queens with a suit to the queen and a 10. You know, the deuce is a poor card, but it's basically just a card to be suited to the queen. Basically, I'm playing a 3-card hand, but I am the cutoff, and, you know, the good parts of that hand are suited queen, pocket queens, and queen 10. And I think that's enough from the cutoff. From earlier positions, I believe this would be a fold. And facing a large bet, you know, I have a gut shot and I have a club blocker, but this is certainly not something I want to continue with at this point. I will tag this for pre-flop, though, as I'm not 100%. All right, let's see. We've gone about 45. I will go a little bit longer and then do the session review. And... decide whether next week or whatever I'm going to start getting into. We'll come back to that. Ace 6-5 queen. I don't think this is a hand I'm going to play in the hijack. especially not with the bonus suit. Ace 6-5 isn't fantastic, as the Ace 5 loses significance of its connectivity once we have the 6, right? 6-5 makes the 6 high straight, where the Ace 5 would have made the 5 high straight. So, you know, the Ace Queen basically connects and the 6-5 connects. So we have like two separate connectors. You know, with the suited ace, that's nice. That's a good thing. But with the extra card of our suit and being in the hijack with loose players behind, I think it's a pretty comfortable fold. On the river, we'd basically be just hoping to get a check down pot. It looks like this pot was either $2 before the flop, or somebody bet $1 on the flop. Probably someone made it like 2 pre-flop, and we got a 5-way pot. This tiny bet, quarter pot, I believe, roughly, exactly. I don't know where they find the quarter pot button, but okay. So a straight ended up winning. Ace, King, Queen, 8 with the tri-suit. And I believe with the 8, this is a fold. I could be way off. This could be way off. I'm gonna check this. I do have the good suit. This is probably a mistake. This is probably too tight. I'm gonna wrap up here on the session and then proceed to the session review. Let's see how many hands I marked. Probably marked like half the hands. I marked like almost a third of the hands. Here we are, session review time. We're going to start with this hand where I just recently folded from the low jack. So under the gun, low jack opening range, single suited, ace, king, queen, 8. Yeah, that's a raise fold with the good or the bad suit. All ace, king, queen is a raise. So even probably monotone. The thing about this hand, one of the reasons I think it's such a good open raise from the low jack is it's going to get a lot of folds because it blocks aces, it blocks kings, it blocks queens. So this is definitely too tight. What I have been doing, we'll say this, is RFI from low jack with any suitedness. Okay, so that's a note basically on this hand. Bad fold. And let's say ace king plus Broadway, ace king BX with good suit equals RFI from low jack. B equals Broadway card. Okay, so the idea, what I'm doing is now every time I have a hand, I want to try and find some things out about it. And when I get some information, say from the matrix, I'm going to make notes about it in my poker tracker. And then I can go back and review hands. I can be like, oh, what was the note? Okay. Oh, any ace, king, queen, I should raise from the low jack with single suited, double suited, whatever, good suit, bad suit. And actually any ace king with a Broadway with a good suit is going to be a raise from the low jack. Okay, cool. And then the B is something that I will gradually make more automatic. And like W should be wheel and what, like M should be for medium card? I don't know. We'll work on that. Okay, so pocket queens with a 10 and a deuce and a suit. This is from the low jack. We're going to take a look at that. I'm sorry, this isn't the low jack. This is the cutoff. I was just talking about the last one. Okay, so queen, queen, single suit, and 10 deuce is yes. So this is bottom. Sorry, well, I want to write this like a true statement, right? That we don't need to actually see the hand necessarily. Queen, queen, 10 deuce with good suit is RFI from cutoff. Call, 3-bet. IP, fold to 3-bet. Out of position. So if the button 3-bets us, we fold. If one of the blinds 3-bets us, we call. And yeah, in terms of getting more stuff out of this, Let's see, queen, queen, 9 wheel is fold from cutoff. And then we'll say W equals 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we've learned that. We're going to move on to the next. And these are things I can like make flashcards out of at some point. I ended up folding this one. I thought this was a little questionable also. We'll go to the low jack. And sevens, what do we got? 7 single suited with the good suit. Yeah, so ace queen with the 7s, I can raise with the good suit, right? So ace queen 7 7, single suited to ace, and we'll just say this: suited to the ace is RFI from low jack. Suited to the queen, it's a fold. Call 3-bet IP, fold 3-bet. Why did I keep typing E-bet? Okay, so in general, so 7-7 XX single suited gets RFI from low jack, so we raise it in this position with suited ace without 2 or 3, and with 6 6 5 5 4 4. Okay, so those are the hands that we're raising. That also raises like ace king and ace 10 bad suit. So also RFI with ace king, ace 10, ace 8, bad suit. All right, so this is information that, again, I can go back and look at when I'm reviewing these hands and remember what I took away from it. I can also go back and watch the video. That's another thing that I can do and learn from what I've learned. A lot of times, like if we just keep learning new things, then we don't really ingrain the things that we learned as well as if we do some repetition, right? Too much repetition, I think, can be very boring. Too much repetition might not be very productive. We can, if we're learning similar things, I think that can be helpful. But just doing the same thing, drilling it over and over until it's like, oh, ace, queen, 7, 7, oh, okay, I have a suited ace and 7s. Oh, no, but I got a deuce, I'm going to fold, right? Oh, I don't have a 2 or 3 and I'm suited to the ace, pocket 7s, cool, let's go, good to go. And, if I see that a few times, and if I read this note and remember about the other things, like, okay, yeah, I think that will help me develop a much better pre-flop game. All right, let's double check. I like your level of attention and detail. You go into everything. Thank you, Slack Shark. Yeah, I'm trying, trying to do a little bit more depth, not just breadth, right? And get as much as I can out of a given hand, right? Instead of just like yes, no, okay, move on. I think, as I know you well know, right? Just like using the solver or using the pre-flop chart to just tell us, was this correct? Yes. Oh, good. I feel validated. No. Oh, I feel bad. I made a mistake. Like that doesn't get us very far, right? We want to try and extract heuristics out of it. And we want to try and, form connections, I think, with the information, and going deeper helps to form connections. For me, anyway, I think that's kind of just how the brain works, but it helps me remember by like actually interacting with the answer, interacting with the information, as opposed to just like kind of being on the surface. All right, so this looks like very clear pre-flop. I want to see whether similar hands do this. Like I'm confident. Okay, 7 7 6 5 6 4 5 4. Those are ones with good suit, and then with bad suit 6 5. So 7 7 with a suited 6 5 would be a raise here, and we are gonna call a 3-bet with this hand, right? So this is, so let's see. 7765. Single suited is an RFI from button, as are 7764 and 77654 with good suit. Which is interesting because I actually thought having the suited cards not be the pair gave us a little bit of an advantage, because then we can flop a set and have a backdoor flush draw, or flush. But apparently it's, the solver doesn't care. So that's just maybe a good thing that can happen, but it doesn't outweigh having, the better suit, apparently. And I do want to go back and just take a look at cutoff, where we had a similar hand that came up after this, and there was an open raise ahead of us, so I didn't end up marking it. But we'll look at 7765. So this hand is also an RFI from cutoff, but those others are not, right? So this exact hand we can open from the cutoff. The other one, 7764, we can open from the button, but not the cutoff. 7765 good suit is marginal open from cutoff as well. Okay, so I think we have some post-flop business to attend to here as well. Our opponent cold called out of the small blind. Generally, that might suggest a very strong range that was kind of decapitated, didn't have aces, but had a lot of connected cards, maybe some medium-large pairs, stuff like that. However, this player has played 70% of their hands, so I think they could have aces. They could flat with them more than a tighter, aggressive type player might flat with aces, and of course they can have all manner of nonsense as well. This hand. Okay, so they check the flop, and then they bet full pot on turn, and I think, the thing about this full pot turn bet is like, it puts me in such a weird spot, right? If I have top set, I think very easy call. Of course, if I had top set, I'm probably betting the flop. The only set I'm really going to have here on the turn is the set I have. So in terms of having this balanced range against a turn pot against my check back, maybe this is definitely a hand I'm supposed to call for balance. I would suspect the solver would be like, yeah, you're supposed to call this hand for balance. Although the solver's also like, what's their range pre-flop? But what hands should they be betting with here? Well, or what hands do we think they are betting with here? Because in terms of thinking about what they should do, I think that's going to be a bit of an adventure. So 10-8, okay, that's the nuts. I'm not blocking it at all. 8-6, that's the second nuts. I'm blocking it a little. So that's still a lot of combos of straights though, right? 16 ways of making 10-8, 12 ways of making 8-6 still, and of course they can have all the various side cards to go with those. A lot of those side cards though, here's the thing I didn't think about. If they have 10-8, 10-8 Jack 9, 10-8 7-5, 10-8 9-7, those are very reasonable. If they have 10-8, they might either have two pair, have a set, or just be blocking one or more of my boat outs. So, my 6, it's nice that I have a blocker. The 5 also stalks, right? I'd rather have a jack or a 9, because then at least I could make a bigger boat with the thing that paired up there, and I'd be blocking a lot of the bigger boats that could come in. Here, having the 5, if a 5 comes, now I'm actually blocking the smaller boats, which I don't want to do, and not to mention just having any card that hits the board is unfortunate, because it just takes me from 10 outs to boat plus to 9 outs to boat plus. So I ended up timing out and folding. I think I was going to call here, and, let's not forget the chance that they could have king, queen, jack 10, and then check the river and my hand is good. So I think I probably should call, but it feels very sketchy and borderline. And so I'm not going to make any notes because I didn't get any data out of that. I could make notes about my thought process there, but I made the video. So I can watch the video if I want to see my thought process. Mostly I'm going to keep the notes to things I've learned from the PLO matrix, and then when I get a PLO solver, if anybody in the chat uses PLO solvers, maybe give a shout out. But I think solvers tend to come in a little later for a lot of PLO players than they do for no limit players. I want to kind of get out ahead of that, but for the time being, I don't have any like this is an answer, right? This is data. These are opinions and thoughts that I'm having about this hand, and I think my opponent can just have so many straights, and because they're loose passive, maybe they're going to pay me off when I get there, but also sometimes they're going to have Jack 9, so like, you know, I don't really feel great getting stacks in on the river if I fill up with like a Jack or a 9. So that's just kind of some reasons that this turn looks better than it is. I think if they check to me, I'm very happy to bet. But as it turned out, they bet, and I timeout folded, and I think that's probably okay-ish. All right, folds to me, ace 9-7. I think I might have overvalued this hand. Let's take a look at a small blind open raising range. Ace 9, single suited, bad suit with a 7-6. Oh, no, okay, this is a raise. So let's say ace 9, 7-6, single suited to the 7 is a raise fold from small blind. So that's good to know. Raise call with good suit. Raise call. This let's say just exactly explicitly if suited to the ace. We'll say in general ace 9 XX is raise is RFI with 2 cards connected to the 9, and only call 3-bet if 8-7, 8-6, 7-6. Maybe this is too much, I don't know, and suited to the ace. So the clear thing there is like, if we're gonna call a 3-bet, we need to be suited to the ace, because we need to be able to have flops that we're gonna be able to play confidently, get money in, make big hands, flush over flush someone, something like that. Whereas if we're suited to the 9, the 8, the 7, the 6, whatever, you know, the side cards are, we're going to be folding those. So I think that's it for that. I raise, I get called, I flop middle pair, which I think a check here is in order. I'm not sure. Honestly, I have very little idea how to play small blind versus big blind. So that's something that I think I will improve at. One, if I start playing some heads up PLO, I think that's actually often a very good way to improve those abilities and gain confidence there. And then secondly, by just playing, and eventually this is a situation where having a solver can be extra useful, especially in these types of games, because if you're blind versus blind, you're heads up, right? And there's all these multi-way pots that are going to be a lot harder to, you know, get and use any kind of solver data, whereas heads up, it's going to be more easy. Let's just get to what's going on. So I have a club, which is blocking the potential club draw. I didn't really give that a lot of thought. I thought my 9 is good a decent part of the time, and I also have an open-ended straight draw. I like this bet a little better if the turn is a 5 of hearts, right? And I like that my straight draw is to the nuts, but 2 of the outs are not the nuts because it's a flush. So it's really 6 outs to the nuts. I think a 9 is likely good. I think an ace is likely good, unless it's maybe the ace of clubs. So I don't mind my bet here. They go ahead and pot it, which, like, I don't know really what they're trying to say. Like, maybe they slow played king. Maybe they picked up a really big draw here. You know, there's not a whole lot that the 5 is going to make you go like, oh, let's get a lot of money in. Maybe they have 5-5. I don't know, king 5, 9-5. But I'd go ahead and fold. I mean, I've got a draw to the nuts, but it's only 6 outs to the nuts. I'm out of position. Seems pretty clear to me. All right. 9-8-5-4. I did raise this. I think this is something I learned yesterday, that a hand like this is actually a little better than I would have thought, because it's double suited. We can play a good number of double suited hands, not this one. This one's a little too loose. So 9854 double suited is fold in cutoff. Just a little too loose. 9865 double suited is RFI. Yeah, and whenever we RFI 98, what I'm going to say, 765, two of those cards double suited, we call 3-bet or 4-bet 9865 double suited, good suits, versus if out of position. So this is a rare one where we're gonna, maybe not that rare, where we're gonna 4-bet more out of position. I think that's actually a general principle, right? When we have aces, we're basically always, if we raise and we get 3-bet by an in-position player, we're going to be 4-betting those out of position, whereas in position we might be flatting against like a blind who 3-bet us. And similarly with a hand like this is how we're going to balance it. A hand like this, but not exactly like this, because we're going to fold this hand, but 9865 double suited, that's going to play really well against a lot of the hands our opponents are going to have. So if we end up getting it in, we get it in. If we have to take a flop, we're going to have some flops that we can just get it in. And if they fold, they fold, which is great, right? They can fold hands like kings. A lot of our 4-bet bluffs are going to have a king, but these double-suited rundowns, which is not this has a double gap, so it's a little too loose in this spot. Let's actually go back, though, and check out the button, and we'll say 9-8 double-suited on the button. Ooh, this is actually also a fold on the button. That is actually surprising to me, and I'm glad I looked it up. 9854 double suited is also folded on button. We only add 9864 double suited to our RFI on button. Interesting. So that surprises me, and I'm glad that, you know, I looked it up. I think every time we find a hand, there's some value in seeing what if it's one position better? What if it's one position worse? What if this card is this? What if this, what if the suits are different? And then we can really get a lot more. This looks like I open limped. I didn't open limp, I raised. But, it allows us to extract a little bit more lesson and, again, to interact a little deeper with the information that we've just gleaned. So maybe I don't remember the thing about the button, but I do remember the thing about the cutoff, whereas if I hadn't learned the thing about the button, maybe I don't remember the thing about the cutoff. I think I'll probably remember both, but given that this was a sort of a false memory from yesterday, where it must have been a hand like, maybe it was 8754 or maybe it was 9864 from the button. For some reason, I saw something that I then thought that this was likely a hand that I play, which it is not. It's a fold. But hey, everybody folded. Hooray. Results. Okay, King 10 tray. So we folded. The answer, the question here was like, what do we do from the button, right? So button RFI, we're going to look at threes, single suited. We're going to fold a ton of these, and King 10 is not, oh, no, King 10 is good enough to make the cut. This is barely an RFI because it's suited to the king. So King 10, tray, single suited is RFI, is worst RFI from button if good suit. Fold if bad suit. Okay. RFI most tray ace X when suited to the ace, and most 3-3 Broadway if good suit. Yeah. So like 3-3 king jack suited to the jack is actually a fold. We want that king high suit, or like queen jack suited to the queen, jack 10 suited. Either way, actually, we play. Right. Okay, so we will save that. I think that's pretty good. We'll also say 3-3-6-5 and 3-3 deuce deuce. Single suited are also button RFIs. Button opens. Cool. The sirens are going off. I don't know what's going on outside. This one, was I contemplating whether I 3-bet this or whether I open this? Let's take a look at the open first. I think this is maybe not even an open. I'm single suited. I'm suited to the queen, and I have a deuce, right? So ace queen. So then 8 deuce. Good suit is an open. Bad suit is a fold. So I think I correctly identified that. I'm not sure what I was talking about during the hand, but if good suit, fold if bad suit. Okay. And I will remember what these good suit, bad suit things. Basically, good suit means suited to the top card in the hand. So in this case, it would be ace, ace high. Bad suit means suited to the queen, suited to the 8. Either of those, it counts as the same. Suited to the queen is clearly better than suited to the 8, but they're kind of rounding a little bit. Fold RFI to 3-bet. Okay, and I won't go too much deeper on that one. I think that's pretty clear. I will see, like, if this is double suited, do we 3-bet it, right? So, no, small blind versus button. Small blind versus button, ace, queen, double suited, right? And then with the 8 and the deuce is going to be a 4-bet, a fold 4-bet. Ace, queen, 8, deuce, double suited versus button, RFI is fold. Need third Broadway card or good connector or good connectivity between side cards. Deuce is terrible card, and we fold all deuce X unless we have third Broadway card. Roadway card, fantastic. Okay, save. All right, next hand. And let me know in the chat how you feel about the sort of note-taking format, whether it is kind of distracting, if it's too slow, just kind of any general impressions. I'm always open to feedback or in the comments in the YouTube video. I'm playing around with the format. I have a very basic, consistent format that I'm doing every day, but then I'm going to make kind of small tweaks here and there and listen to your feedback and make alterations, also based on, how I feel about it. Like, does this feel cumbersome? I actually really enjoy taking the notes. I feel like it's very important for me, but maybe that's something I do off stream. I don't know. Tell me what you think. Okay, ace-7. Single suited. Yeah, so the 2 and the 3 are just garbage. So ace-7, 2-3-2. Single suited is fold from button. Only RFI. Okay, so never RFI ace-7 with a deuce. Only RFI ace, or no, RFA all other ace-7 with suited ace and ace-7 6-5 and ace-7 5-4 with bad suit as well. Okay, so that's that hand. Pretty straightforward. Moving on. All right, so this is a very good hand pre-flop. I think it's a very good 3-betting hand. We are about to find out. This is MP versus under the gun, or hijack versus low jack, the battle of the jacks. Kings single suited with good suit ace-10. This is a raise fold. So I actually am going to 3-bet this and then fold to a 4-bet, which, I don't know. That feels a little weird, but apparently it's the way to go. So, what ones are we doing, right? So let's say ace, king, king, 10 is raise, fold with good or bad suit, hijack versus low jack. So that right there is interesting to me. Ace, queen. So what's the best way to sum up this information? Ace, king, king, X, bad suit is always raise, fold here. And ace, queen, let's see. When suited to, so ace, king, king, X, good suit is cold call with queen, jack, we'll say 4, 3, 2, and with, no, we'll just say that, and king, king plus second pair, single suited, is always call, as are decent mid to high connectors. So that's kind of, that's like more of a heuristic, right? That's a way to look at this data and try and like fit it in the brain. Like, you know, I mean, when I was younger, I had something that I would say was closer to a photographic memory, but wasn't like truly a photographic memory. I think my grandmother actually had a literal photographic memory, but you know, I can't just look at the chart and just be like, okay. I mean, I could probably close my eyes now and then reproduce it, but probably not a month from now, right? And that's maybe not even the most efficient way to find the data anyway. I think having heuristics like this, we're like, okay, if we have kings and we're single suited and the low jack opens, we're going to 3-bet when we have an ace. Always 3-bet with an ace, except if it's suited to the ace and we have a king, jack, 4, 3, or 2. So those ones we're going to flat. And then we're going to also flat kings with any other pair, and then some good connectors. And I'm seeing like jack 10, queen 10, like other Broadway cards with if with the bad suit. So like suited to the queen or the jack, you know, 3, queen, jack 10, 2 out of those. And then like 9, 8. I think also we're gonna play maybe queen 10. Actually, we fold suited to the queen, but like 9, 8, we're gonna also flat that. So we're flatting a fair amount. Yeah, 10, 8, jack 9. Okay, so that's about right. Actually, king, king, queen, jack suited to the queen, we're gonna fold. But so that's something that I can remember, right? That's something I can hang on to and utilize in future sessions. And it's a thing to learn as opposed to a thing to memorize, if that makes sense. It's like, it's a little conceptual, like, oh, we're 3-betting when we have the ace most of the time because they're not going to have a lot of ace-ace and we're going to get some folds. Whereas when we don't have the ace, we're going to get 4-bet a lot more often. If we have like king, king, queen, queen, and we 3-bet them, we're going to get 4-bet, and that's going to be an unpleasant situation. So let's see what happens with this board. It looks fairly poor. But I end up checking it. If I had a flush draw here, I might just go ahead and bet. I do have the backdoor flush draw. I have a gut shot, and I have kings, right? Which is of some value. So when I check and this player jams, what I've done is I've put this other player in bad relative position. They have to respond to this bet before they know what I want to do. I could have been check raising this with the nuts or with top set or some massive draw like ace, king, queen, 10 with spades and backdoor clubs or whatever, right? I mean, I'd only have to change like one card. If I made my king of hearts a queen of clubs, that's such a massive draw. So I could be check jamming this. And they fold, and then I call it off, and we see how it runs out. And I win with my kings, right? And they actually had, I think, fairly poor equity. Let's kick open the equity calculator on this one. All right. So what have we got here? All right, we're gonna run it back to the flop because we're not really concerned about after that. Okay, so I have 77% equity. What if I just give them? What if I give them the nuts? Single range selector. Oh, maybe instead of the nut, I'll give them, let's see, 10 of spades. We'll not give them a flush draw. We'll give them like 7 of hearts, 8 of diamonds, and I could even give them 2 pair. But let's say 6 of clubs. All right, so they have a rainbow hand. It's a rundown. And we're going to just see what we're doing against that. So I've got 25% equity against the nuts with a pair. Even if I make this a jack of clubs, I think I'm going to have 20-ish. Yeah, 22. So here's the thing. If they have the nuts and not a flush draw, on the flop, they bet about half pot is what they have left. Actually, it's exactly half pot before rake. So I'm getting 3-1, so I only need 25% equity. So if they have the nuts and not a whole lot else, I'm getting direct odds, right? They could turn 10-8 face up and then show like 2 random deuces, and I'd be like, oh, okay, I call. And so I think that's sort of an interesting part of this hand here, is that I've got, direct odds to draw against the nuts, even though I've only got a gut shot and a pair and a backdoor flush draw. But all that adds up. So given that I can also have the best hand, which I did, and it held up, I think this is a slam dunk call. So, and we'll say on flop, my hand has close to 25% equity against 10 ace without redraws. So that's like a fact. I could have written 23%. How many more hands do we have in this? Ooh, okay. I marked a lot of hands today. So I'm glad that I ended the session a little bit early. This is just pre-flop. We'll go a little lighter for the rest of it. And you don't always have to dig in maximally to everything, right? Sometimes dig in really deep on 1 or 2 things and then just do a little light checkup on some other stuff. These things will, lean towards more of a light checkup. Ace 10 single suited on the button with a 5-4 would be an open raise, right? So I will just at least say RFI button with good suit, very clear, right? And call 3-bet. And then we'll go back and say, okay, if there was 1 limper, how do I do against 1 limper? So if I were the cutoff, basically same in cutoff. And then we say, what if I was the hijack? If there were 2 limpers, that's kind of what we're going to use. Same in hijack even, but fold with bad suit. I think in the cutoff we folded bad suit too, right? Let's just see low jack. Do I this is a pretty decent, no. Fold in low jack. Okay, so that's basically all I wanted to get out of that hand. And I folded, and we move on. All right, queen, 10, 10, 8. I folded it against an open raise. This hand, let's first just go to the middle position. Oh, no, I'm the cutoff, right? I'm cutoff. So I'm just confident that this is an open raise from the cutoff. Yeah, we'll double check it. 10, 10, single suited with the queen and the 8. Yeah, clear open raise from cutoff. Versus MP. Cutoff versus MP, or versus the hijack here. So we're 5-handed, so they're third to act. 10s, single suited, queen 8. Okay, so it's going to be, in this case, it's going to be a fold, right? So we've got queen, 10, 10, 8, single suited, clear RFI from cutoff, but barely misses the cut, or a cold call versus hijack RFI, right? So fold is good. There we go. And so we fold that, and then we move on to the next hand. Ace, king, queen, 8, and yeah, this one, I think, did I look this one up already? I don't know. Small blind versus button. We're going to say here, small blind versus button, ace, queen, king, 8, single suited. Oh, with bad suit is a fold. All right, so this is tricky because it's against this min raise. We do want to, so we're going to fold this combination against a real raise from the button. And I think folding it here is fine, but it's close-ish. It's not that, I don't know. I think it probably would have been fine to 3-bet if we think that this represents a wider range. Or, yeah, a wider range than a bigger open. And then here, was I wondering whether this was an open raise even? I think I'm pretty clear, right? Small blind, ace 10 single suited. We have the good suit. This is a fold from the small blind. So, yeah, so ace 10, 3 deuce, single suited is still a fold from small blind. Is still an open fold from small blind, even with good suit. 3 deuce is a couple of terrible cards. They even deserve both R's in the word terrible. Okay. Whew. All right, so that was it for today. I went a little deeper on the session review in terms of talking about the hands and taking notes and all of that. So let me know what you think about that approach, about taking notes on screen. The first video, I was taking notes off screen, and I think that certainly wasn't ideal. I'm not sure how I feel about this yet, but I'm certainly welcome to feedback. So, or open to feedback. Feedback is welcome. So, yeah. Even if you didn't like it, hit like and subscribe, but let me know in the comments that, you know, hey, maybe go back to the other format, maybe a little less session review. But I'm also going to do more of the 3 tabling, so let me know if that's what you're into. And once again, as always, thanks so much for watching, and I will catch you next time. Cheers.